Welcome back to the channel. This is Roberto Full Curl Precision again. Long day, but here I am, still doing this after my regular day shift job and everything else too. Let me turn this around for half a second, a little longer than that. I did a little post on these. So these are going to be the rounds I'm going to be using to fire form into my my new brass. I put these together. These are just burger target bullets. They're nothing special, but it also kind of looks really cool and good in the box. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be using. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight, let me turn this back around. There we go. One thing I wanted to talk about tonight is I like to do little surveys, and one of the posts I did was about barrel length and what do people prefer. And after 35 votes, it's kind of interesting. 24 inches is the most preferred barrel length by 39% of that. After that, the next length of barrel preferred is 26. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. I thought it was going to go the other way, but you know, the other thing that, because I put out different options. So I did 20, 22, 24, and 26. The least selected is actually the 20-inch barrels. I would have thought it would have been more, but no, it's not. 20-inch barrels are still not the preferred option, at least not among you guys. To the people who are watching this, you clearly like longer barrels. You're my people. I like longer barrels too. I'm not a big fan of shorter barrels. Like the shortest I want to go is 22 inches. I'm with this build. I am doing a 22-inch barrel, and the reason is because it does fit a balance. So I'm trying to build it to where it's comfortable to still pack around in a variety of environments. So if you wanted to use, let's say, this cartridge that I'm designing in thicker areas, 22-inch barrel is still comfortable to fit into, let's say, a shooting house, or whatever you want to call it. I call it a shooting house. It's basically an elevated box blind. It'll be comfortable to fit in there. It'll be easier to hold in and around like a tree stand of sorts. Or if you're stalking through the woods, or if you're even hunting on wide open terrain, it's also not going to be too big. I find that once you get past 26-inch barrels, it's kind of hard in a lot of terrain. It really, 26-inch barrels and longer are really optimal for wide open flat shooting, where you're gonna, you have time to set up and have everything working out fine. They can be a challenge to pack around the mountains in thick terrain. The other thing too is 24 inches is nice, but at the same time, if you're trying to have the idea of also, whether it's shaving some weight or also, what's the thought process? I wanted to blank out of my head. Shave some weight, but also add a suppressor. There you go. That's the thought that was trying to come out. You can use your big boy words. Anyway, yeah, that's the idea. So with the case capacity that I'm going with, I've been doing a lot of research. I should be able to achieve basically between 97% and 100% burn rate consistently out of a 22-inch barrel. That said, will I get a 24-inch or 26-inch barrel eventually? I'm leaning towards 24. I will not go 26. The reason, and I've explained this in other videos, again, it comes down to practicality, reloading data, different things like that. I don't want to give an unrealistic expectation of what people can get. And the thing is, most rifles don't have 26-inch barrels. You can get them custom. That's fine all day long. You can do whatever you want. Same thing when it comes to 20-inch barrels. But I won't personally do that. I want to have data in a 22-inch barrel, but I also want to have data for my cartridge in a 24-inch barrel, so people can have options and have a more realistic expectation of what the cartridge is going to do, in their barrel length. So I don't want to be padding numbers going, oh, look, you can get 3,000 feet per second with this weight of bullet, blah, 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 and then sell them a rifle that only has 20-inch or 22-inch barrel. That's you're not going to get the same burn rate. So I'm trying to have it where the data lines up with what the customers can expect when they eventually will get a rifle in my cartridge. That said, and I did a video last night, I did settle on a rifling design as far as actual grooving. And I have looked, and I have looked, and I have looked. And there's nothing like there's no pattern that matches what we just came up with. And my friend who's helping me out, he asked me to refer to him as the technician. So that's what I'm going to refer to him. My good buddy, he's a technician. So what I do, and I'll turn this back around for a second, is I do stuff like this. So this is just a rough sketch of like the outside of the bore. So like to represent the bore of a barrel, right? And then so you have your bore, and then you have your lance at the top of your rifling. So while the numbers, and let me pull out something that's a little bit easier for me to see. There we go. My drafting drawer. What I do is I put ideas on paper first. And no, this is not the exact. And really, neither is that. So what I'm doing is I'm utilizing ideas. And no, this is not the scale. It's just to represent an idea. And I'm toying with ideas. So what I'm trying to do is look at it and go, is this feasible? How does it work with being able to grip your bullet while at the same time having substantial grip? Because you can't just remove material. The idea is you still need to stabilize the bullet. And so you have to have it set up where you're going to still maintain great control of the bullet, spin and accuracy, everything that goes with it, while also reducing resistance. So whether it's and there's a couple ways you can do that. You can there's by removing the number of grooves and reducing that down to a certain amount. There's also removing the size. So you can shrink down the size of them. But the thing is, you can only go so small, and then it's just not big enough to give a good bite. So what I'm trying to do is, and I always say this, it's all about balance. So these are just concepts that we kind of worked on a little bit. These aren't cartridges that are going to happen, at least not yet. So we have all sorts of things that we work on. This was just an illustration of ways to improve case volume with the same amount of materials. This one illustrates how to maximize your surface areas and different ways you can mold them. So traditionally you had more of a square cut, and then you can kind of change it to a round, and here you go. You can kind of see how much less surface area you're going to have with a rounded shape or something similar as opposed to a square cut. And then obviously here's one again where you have a standard 6 versus a 5. So, and then here's another way to understand it. And here's like a 3 position, 3R. And then other ways to reduce down your surface area, because a straight line has less surface contact than a circle in certain ways. So it's finding ways to combine and illustrate. Here's a concept cartridge I kind of developed a little bit. That's not going to happen as of yet. We are going to eventually build some of these, but a lot of these are just concepts, and that's kind of cool. I like messing with ideas. Anyway, so I have all sorts of ideas. I put them down on paper. I get my details, and I'm not gonna, you're not really gonna see a whole lot with this, but you see that I'm actually drawing it out with specific details and numbers and things like that. I have a whole thing here, and I keep these as reference points, see if things that I want to modify or whatever the case is. But I'm constantly adapting and changing. I'm never going to sit here and go, oh, I have everything perfectly figured out. If there's a more efficient way and I can learn it, whether somebody else mentions something or I can figure out a better way, I'm going to do so. So the only hint that I'm going to give as to what we're working on is it is going to be based upon 3R. That's it. The exact specs or anything else like that, no, that won't happen for now. Like, I'm not going to give out those details. No. So yeah, I am actually working on this. This is happening. And the goal is to have not only something that is super accurate, which anymore, there's so many really accurate rifles, even with, let's say, a standard 6. Am I looking to have something that's going to be literally have a group size of 0.00? That's not possible. Can I try to achieve something that's going to be sub quarter MOA? That's a goal for sure. But that said, what I'm looking to do more than anything else is to achieve really good accuracy, but be able to maximize velocity out of the same lengths of barrels that you currently get. And so by changing up the number of grooves and how they're positioned and everything else, you can achieve that. But it's not just how you do it, it has to do with how it digs into the bullet. And so my brain thought of something and it had an light bulb idea. Bing! So I'm hoping this is going to be a sticking point. I will say this. Fortunately, I already have a good working contact with a tooling company. They made my custom dies. They made my reamer, my go-no-go gauges, so on and so forth. So I was looking up. I'm like, okay, so let's say I go with this idea and I want to be able to make this. How do I go about getting the tooling? Because I can't just simply come up with an idea and walk up to a manufacturer and go, hey, you should convert to this. No, I have to have a proof of concept that this works. So I was looking it up, and the same company that made my dies and my reamer and everything else with this, since I already have a good working basis with them, I'm going to have to save up a little bit, but the plan is to get that where I get my own rifling. And I asked my gunsmith, like, okay, so if you're going to work with a company, let's say for a barrel, let me throw out this name. What do you think of these guys? And so I throw out the name Packnor, and he's always, no, they make excellent barrels. What's cool, and fortunately enough for me, somebody I grew up with basically lives out in the same town where Packnor is made. So my thought process right now is I'm gonna get in I have his number. We're still friends. I'm gonna see about getting the tooling shipped to him and see what they would charge to be able to rifle one of their barrels with my rifling tool. And if that works out, I'm going to also do some comparisons between cartridge, but also twist rate, and compare it to the Bergara B14 Ridge I have right now in a standard 270 with its 1 in 10 twist and its standard 6. So the plan is to adjust these things where I can see how well it shoots. I absolutely believe that this has potential to produce some of the fastest velocities out of any barrel using the same barrel length. So just using it as a simple example, if let's say by changing up the right geometry of the groove, the number of grooves, and their exact positioning, if you can gain somewhere between 100, or let's go with 75 to 125 feet per second out of the same length of barrel, why wouldn't you? It just makes pure sense. And I've gone back and forth. People ask, well, do you prefer button rifling or cut rifling? And I know there's always a question of which one is more accurate, and the answer is I don't have a real preference outside of longevity. Button rifling is very accurate. Cut rifling is also very accurate. There are some manufacturers where they're both doing, sub quarter MOA. So I don't think it's so much important about the method that cuts it in terms of accuracy, because technology and machining advancements have come so far to where they're both extremely viable options and do really well. My thing is about barrel life and expectations as far as things like throat erosion. So that's what I'm more concerned with. And I think based upon that, I'm leaning more towards cut rifling only for the longevity. I'm not questioning accuracy for you guys who are listening and paying attention. If you love button rifling, great. And I'm being serious. Absolutely great. I think it's a great method, but it's not as durable in the long run as cut rifling. That's not me making it up. I know all of you have seen the same information that I have. It's nothing that I'm making up. This has been proven for decades. So I think my method is going to be go with a cut method, and to get that tooling made. And I was actually surprised at what the general cost is. I thought it was going to be considerably more. So, is it cheap? No, it's definitely not cheap. But is it as much as I was thinking it would have been? Also, no. So, yes, new rifling will be getting developed. And it's just a matter of time. It's not going to happen overnight. I have to be able to save for it. But I do plan on getting that done. Hopefully it happens this year. That's kind of the hope, is to have it done this year. And yeah, I am going to be chambering it in mine, in my 27 Ibex. So yeah, it's going to be really cool. There's going to be some new tech coming down the pike. And for the guys who are subscribed and watching, you get front row seats to all of this. I'm going to be documenting the whole thing. And I absolutely believe that this has the ability to change how rifling is done in the industry. I think it's completely worth it. Because with the the advancements in terms of going through for shorter and shorter barrels, if you're going to drop down 2 inches or even 4 inches, if you can maintain as much velocity as you possibly can, why wouldn't you? That's really it, ultimately. And especially when you have more and more advancement in monolithic bullets, they're a lot tougher compared to your standard cup and core. So they can be a little harder on your rifling. So my thought process is, if you can make a grooving system that bites the bullet but doesn't deform it as much, that I think there's a great possibility that this would allow for better accuracy and also better expansion rates. So a more consistent expansion. Because the more you deform a bullet, the less consistent it's going to be on whatever it hits. And that's kind of the biggest thing. Is we're not just talking long range target shooting. That's its own thing. It doesn't matter how uniform it is in terms of how it expands. When you're shooting paper or steel, it's really irrelevant. But when you're hunting, consistent expansion and material is everything, because you want to be able to rely on it every single time. The ultimate goal is a one-shot ethical kill to put the animal down fast. And that's what I'm trying to achieve more than anything else. Not only accuracy, but how you deform the bullet to allow it to stay together as best as possible. So that's all I have for tonight. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, hit that notification bell. I don't know when I'm going to be able to get the hype button up and going, but if you're really interested in this, again, hit like, comment in there, share it with everyone you know. Yeah, I'm trying to make this grow. I'm trying to do this where I can bring really good, solid, inventions to the public, so that way they can get the best options available. Well, that's all I have for tonight, and we'll talk to you again.